Time to check in with infectious disease specialist Dr. Zain Chagla with the latest developments with COVID-19. Good morning. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday, Bob.
Let's start with this. So with Kyle Lowry remaining as a Toronto Raptor, does this mark the beginning of the end of the pandemic? We know you're a huge basketball fan.
Yeah, I'm a huge basketball. I hope it's the beginning of us watching Kyle Lowry again in October, November, and so obviously I'm ecstatic to see the Raptors together, at least the major core other than Norm Powell.
Yeah, let's talk about the latest developments. Now, Pfizer is starting an early stage trial for a COVID-19 drug, an actual oral treatment. How promising is this, and how important is this?
Yeah, so many of the companies are developing these early therapies. Some of them are monoclonal antibodies. Some of them are antiviral drugs. Listen, there are going to be people that break through the vaccine. There are going to be cases, where we're going to need to prevent hospitalization. Still, the modeling from the UK suggests, you'll get hospitalizations like influenza on any given year, and so healthcare capacity is already stretched. There's a big need for therapeutics still, just to make sure that people stay out of hospital and obviously preventing some of the complications. Yeah, I think this is still an issue that needs to be sorted out. The pandemic is unfortunately not going to end with vaccines. It's going to be a manageable disease,
right?
But we still need therapies to offer people in hospital.
Yeah. Now, there's more data supporting that people who have already had COVID-19 really could get away with one shot, and that would certainly stretch it the supply and get more shots in arms. Do you think this is going to be applied?
Yeah, I think so. France has already moved to this. The data looks really good that people who get COVID-19 who have a single dose of vaccine actually have antibody levels that are higher than people who've had 2 doses of vaccine that have never had COVID-19. And
wow.
Now a really interesting study that was done, suggesting that people should get a vaccine who have had COVID-19 in the past, because actually people that have had non-variant COVID-19, when they take the vaccine, actually get really high levels of antibodies to the variants as well. And so, that one-dose strategy makes a lot of sense. It saves a lot of doses. And, you really could, in places like Peel and Toronto, scale that up because there's been so many infections to testing people at the time they get their first dose of vaccine. If they have positive antibodies, they don't get scheduled for a second dose because we know their antibody levels are going to be really good with that single dose.
Yeah, that would really speed up the rollout. Now, what about, I know Moderna is doing some testing. Where are we at with a COVID-19 vaccine for children, and when will that come along?
Yeah, so Pfizer is finishing their trial, and I think they're going to start releasing results about the 12 to 16-year-old cohort, which they're just completing. Moderna is going, as you know, as young as 6 months. AstraZeneca is going to a pediatric trial as well. So we'll see this data trickling out over the next 3 months. Pfizer, I think, being the first that already is finished enrolling for its clinical trial. I don't doubt that there's going to be safety and efficacy in these groups. It's just confirming it through these clinical trials.
Okay. There was another study that rhinovirus, common cold, is actually triggering some inhibitors for COVID-19. What are the implications for this?
Our bodies have baseline antiviral responses, a drug called interferon, which we use externally, but our body produces internally to fight viruses. And so in this really interesting study, when you had when you had blood infected with the common cold and infected with COVID-19, the common cold virus triggered the interferon response, which actually inhibited the growth of COVID-19. And so, we haven't had many other viruses circulating, and certainly things like influenza are serious. We don't want them co-mixing with COVID-19. But some of the more benign viruses may actually be protective in some sense. That being said, they have to be infected at the same time. People have to be able to tolerate both. But there is something to be said that it's not as simple as saying no viruses altogether. There may actually be a play to interact together.
Okay. AstraZeneca, we're being assured that it is safe, but, it's had so many problems and so many missteps with its testing. And then the blood clot thing comes along. And we're assured that, the numbers that we see are not above, a typical, population. But at the same time, we're only hearing it with AstraZeneca. Like, what's going on with that?
Yeah, it is strange. This drug has been under intense scrutiny. There's probably other factors at play in terms of the politics as well. As we're hearing about the UK and EU, there's almost a trade war around this drug. All that to be said, we do need some caution. There is a risk of a rare clotting disorder that seems to be described with this, and the product monograph in Canada was updated for people to warn themselves about symptoms. But at the end of the day, we're talking 1 in 350,000 or 1 in 500,000. My risk as an under 40-year-old of dying of COVID-19 is way higher than that. And add to that, this vaccine is here and it's available and it's actually pretty effective compared to some of the US data at that 76%. So, I think it's still a drug that needs to be administered. It's going to be administered around the world. It's probably going to be the biggest vaccine on the market. And I think people right now need to understand there are tiny risks associated with this, but the risk of COVID-19 is much, much higher.
Absolutely. Well, hey, again, darn it, we're out of time again, but we appreciate your weekly updates. And boy, the news seems to get better every week as well. So that's great.
Yeah.
Dr. Zain Chagla, thanks so much.